Hey everyone, welcome to Buzzing About Romance. I am Becky, and I am super excited to be joined for this episode by Leah. Hey Leah.
Hi, Becky.
And Lindsey. Hey Lindsey.
Hey.
So we are going to tackle the topic of sports romance for this episode, but we talk sports romance a lot. Like that was the connecting piece for a lot of us was we were all sports romance people. And we've been doing this for 3 years and we've talked a lot of sports romance. So we're hoping in this episode to kind of talk about some of the idiosyncrasies of sports romance, what we think works, what we don't think works, what we like, what we don't like, why it's so popular.
And let me say something. As I was going through like my list trying to find books, there's certain types of sports that I realize I read a lot of, other types of sports that I don't read a lot of, but there also are not a lot available.
Yeah.
And so it's like kind of frustrated by that. So authors, if you listen, we're going to tell you which ones we need more of.
Before we get into all the nitty gritty of that though, I want to do our romance term of the week. This week's term of the week is why choose romance, formerly known as reverse harem. The reason that we are no longer referring to it as reverse harem is there were people that were within the Middle Eastern cultures that feel the word harem is derogatory. It is not a word they are comfortable with, and they have asked that we stop using that word. There is a lot of cultural nuances and also some problematic pieces with the word harem.
That makes sense.
So in an effort, even though there might be somebody from those cultures, it's like, I don't mind the word. It doesn't matter. For us going forward, we are going to use why choose romance.
I feel like that's relative in any culture though. Like there's terms where some people have a hard time with terms and other people don't.
But I have to say, I believe by calling it a why choose romance, it gets into why I don't like this. Why I don't like this subgenre. And why choose is a subgenre of contemporary romance, although you also find it in PNR and you also will find it in Omegaverse.
I have a little like caveat to that. So I'm not a huge fan of the why chooses. Like I'll read them, but I don't love them. But when it's like a fated mates PNR or like an Omegaverse where there's like mates and stuff, it doesn't bug me as much.
Well,
I agree.
See,
because there's like a hierarchy. But then when it's just like the why choose situation, it's weird, especially when you start introducing like multi-generational aspects and you're with the dad and the brother and it's weird. I have trouble with that.
I mean, if that's your thing, that's okay. But
we do not yuck anyone's yum.
We just don't always read them.
I don't. I just interpret it in a way that makes me cringe.
That's fine. So when we say a why choose romance, here is what we consider why choose. We have a female protagonist with multiple, it must be 3 or more, male love interests. Now, when the HEA arrives, she isn't left choosing just one. She gets to keep them all. I disagree with this. I don't believe it's an HEA.
Okay, but I do have a question. You love a throuple.
It is different. It is different. So I feel the why choose romances that I have read, they do not feel like they are in committed future polyamorous moving forward relationships. It just feels like, hey, I like having sex. These people like having the sex. We're all going to have the sex together.
See, my thing is like, I feel like I've read books with 3 and I felt like there's a substantial HEA to it. But for me, if it gets to be 4 or more is where it gets a little muddy for
3
me.
period. There must be 1 girl, 2 men, or 2 girls, 1 man. 3 period.
Just 3 period.
3 period.
See, I can do the 3 guys and 1 girl.
I got 3 no time for that.
Girls and 1 guy. But like, when it gets to be 4.
Okay, I will caveat.
When she runs out of holes.
I will caveat this with saying, oh my God, Leah, that was gross. But I will say this. Okay.
You're welcome.
There is on an occasion that I do not mind a polyamorous situation if swords are crossing.
But I feel like when you add that polyamorous title to it, it takes it a different direction than just a why choose, though.
I agree.
Why
Go
are
ahead.
throuple romances not part of why choose though? Because there's some really good like throuple
Because there's only
romances.
two people. There's only one
There's only
person.
three people. It has to be 4 or more to be why choose.
But in
It's
a
that
throuple,
4.
there's 3 people.
But it has to be 4 or more that she has to choose between. Or 3 or more.
There has to be a total of 4.
Because in the throuple romances, it's not uncommon to see like a girl guy situation.
And it's not unusual. Like, I love Mary Carr's books, and she writes male, female, male, where swords do not cross. And I don't mind those. And I believe that they are in a committed polyamorous relationship. I understand it. The dynamic works. But honestly, what it comes down to is I have a husband and I have a son. And if I had to live with one more male in this house, I am fairly certain I would be pushing people out the stairs or giving swirlies in the toilet hourly.
Yeah, but you would be getting all the orgasms.
Boys suck. I'm sorry, guys.
They smell really bad too. Like, boys smell.
Right? Could you imagine how stinky that house would be? All that sex?
It would
even
be a
worse,
locker room. It would be like a gym locker room.
Even worse,
football.
A why choose hockey romance? Because there's
with
nothing
all the
that
hockey
smells
gear?
more bad than that. That would be like,
I don't know, football.
Don't ever write that. Don't ever.
There is one out there that is.
Yes, but a football locker room is really bad too.
Locker rooms period are bad.
It's where like wet and sweat and that combination.
And it like permeates the walls.
Okay, we have to move on from sweat, people. Okay, right into the locker rooms of sports romance. So on this episode,
that was a good transition,
right? I'm getting so good at this. After 3 years, I've got a beat. On this episode of Buzzing About Romance, we're going to talk about the subgenre of sports romance. Sports romance are more than a trope, and the specific sports that fall under sports romance are subgenres of sports romance, because we then see other tropes within those subgenres. For example, hockey, we have a best friend's brother, or we have enemies to lovers, or coach's daughter, or roommates.
Or a secret baby.
So we need to start looking at sports as a subgenre of romance, of contemporary romance. And the specific sports are subgenres of sports romance. And I think that will help kind of line up our book recs easier too for people. Because if you come to me and you say, hey, I want a sports romance, well, which sport do you want? Because they read very differently.
Yeah, they do. Well, and that's the thing too. Well, and part of it too is like the type of sport leads to a very different like way that the romance can play out too. Like how much like downtime there is, the seasons itself. Like there's so many variables in sports romance.
So I recently read a baseball romance. I was checking out R.S. Gray's her New York Pinstripe series. And I was reading it. And as I was reading it, I realized baseball might have one of the shortest off seasons.
It does. And if you're a pitcher or a catcher, you get like...
You don't really have any off season.
Yeah, Valentine's Day is when you report. Valentine's Day is when pitchers and catchers report to spring training. And it's a couple weeks before everybody else shows up.
I mean, really, if you think about it, if a baseball team goes to the World Series or into the playoffs, they're playing into October.
They have a really long season.
Yeah, some years too, like into November, because like last year, I think they had contract negotiations and the season started over a week late and it pushed them into November. So that's like really short off season.
Well, and then like, so we'll get into some specific sports, but like, I was just thinking that when an author writes romances, it really would affect the couple dynamic based on season, off season, and the travel, because we see it with our hockey romances, right? And everything like that.
Yeah.
But I think that there's this like I think of like the football season, it's got to be the shortest season, right? The shortest
It is,
playing
yeah, because
season.
it's like 12 weeks,
And it's,
16
I
weeks
think it's
total.
16 weeks, and then you add in the playoffs, and they do report for training. They do
They're
training
there
camp,
now.
but that's in like August, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not that
Yeah,
much
August.
before the season. They do like maybe 4 weeks.
They have like mini camps because I know there's been some Steelers mini camps, like because I've been watching like Instagram and stuff, and since it's our local team, but they do like mini camps like throughout and like small training camps, but before like they do like their full on stuff. It's August.
So in previous episodes, we have done a hockey and a football draft. We have talked about rodeo in our cowboy episode. We also did our after sports episode where we covered retired players, injured players, sports agents, owners, or staff. And we included coach and medical staff in that. And we also did coach's child. So those have been covered in previous episodes. If you like, we will talk hockey and football, but we probably are not going to talk Cowboys this time because we just did that. But I will link all these different episodes in our on the shelf show notes.
I also didn't think of cowboys and rodeo for this.
That's okay. So do you agree with me when my statement of sports is a subgenre of romance and the type of sports is a sub of that? Do you agree with me?
Yes.
100%.
So then this is my theory on why sports romance is so popular. And I've been spouting this theory for a couple months now, and some people are like, "Oh yeah, I agree with you," and others think I'm insane. So I want your honest take on this.
Or they think both.
I mean, hey Amanda, or Jill. I mean,
Amber.
So,
her name is Amber. Not
my
Amanda.
God. Okay.
Sorry, Amber.
So sports romance. I believe that the reason it is so popular right now, athletes are the acceptable billionaires. We do not fault them for having multiple cars and big money and buying nice things for their partner. They live in big houses. No one's faulting them. But they hate on billionaire romances.
They do, and I agree, but I also think that sports have leaned into the book talk. And people are like thriving in that book talk environment.
You know, it's really interesting. And I kind of watched that play out with the Seattle Kraken a little bit, although I was kind of on my was on my social media hiatus during that. The Seattle Kraken really leaned into book talk while they were in the playoffs. And there's this glorification of those players. There is this sexualization of them. And some of the book talkers, I think, took it too far. And it was gross. It was gross to me. And it made me start thinking, I mean, I like looking at an attractive man, but I am not going to make some over-the-top screaming video ogling him and dissecting them and picking them apart. And I feel like if somebody was doing that, if, you know, they were doing that to a group of women, catcalling the woman, going on and on about, you know, her chest or her butt or her thighs or whatever, as women, we would be upset by that. We would think that's gross, right? So why as women are we not grossed out at those book talkers that went to the extreme on sexualizing those hockey players?
Because it's the wonderful world of the double standard.
Well, okay. So I love abs on my covers, but I'm not like gonna lick it.
Yeah.
Just metaphorically.
I mean,
yeah, like I'm not gonna, I mean, I don't know. Plus it's something you're putting out there publicly for people to see, and I just don't want people to see me like treat other people that way, even if it's not somebody I know.
I think that's it. And there was one author over there and a couple of book talkers that have bigger accounts that were gross. The sexualization of the Seattle Kraken and what they did on book talk, it was gross. Because I thought, those men, some of them have wives or girlfriends. Some of them have daughters and sisters and sons. And what lesson are you teaching? And it got to the point that the objectification of these men made me feel gross. And it was like a step too far. Like, I think Wander is a very handsome man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do I look at him when he's on a cover? 1,000%. Do I buy it if he's on the cover? Probably 1,000+1%. All that being said, I know that he is a very savvy, smart businessman. He is a very talented photographer. There is much more to him than a gray beard and some nice abs. And I'm not like railing to my million followers being like, look at my daddy. He's so sexy. Let's lick him. You know, it's just like, come on, guys. It's gone too far.
I mean, if you do want to behave that way, you can go to my local Whole Foods on a Sunday because like they all look like Wander with various faces.
Could you see me standing in Whole Foods yelling, "Who's my daddy?" at everybody? Like, really? Daddy.
I don't know what was going on with it, but it looked like a hockey team had unleashed in my Whole Foods or something. Like, I don't understand what was happening today. And I've never seen that many dudes shopping in a grocery store before.
I mean,
it was
but you enjoyed the view, but you didn't make a big deal about it.
It took me a little longer to shop today.
That's okay.
But it's all in how you treat it. And that's the big thing. It's like you are welcome to look, you're welcome to Google, but it's how you react and display yourself.
I think it's how you handle yourself in this situation. I've seen, Mike and I have been watching The Last Kingdom on Netflix.
Well, that's a really good show.
And we just watched a scene where Uhtred got baptized and we got to see a picture of his backside. And I suggested to Mike that we pause it and that Michael drop his drawers and we could do a side-by-side comparison so that I could Google his body also. Didn't, but I'm also not like taking 70 snaps and sharing it over on TikTok and being like, hey, to my 300 followers, check out this guy's ass, it's hot. I'm not doing that. I don't know. I just think there's a line.
But that's the thing, like it's one thing to do things in the privacy of your home. It is another to put that out there and like project that to the world.
I also sometimes feel like an icky mom because like I'm pretty sure dude's not that old. I'm at that weird age now where you have to like look how old they are and be like, could I be his mom?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's something like Charlie and I talk about that a lot with baseball because like
there's some really young players right now.
Yeah, there are a ton of really young players. Like they're like 20, 22, 24. It's not uncommon for that. Like the sport has really aged down. So like there's a lot more really young, highly talented players in baseball, whereas like 10 years ago, like it was a big deal for all of a sudden 19, 20, 21-year-olds to be playing in the big leagues.
Has it aged down or have we just aged up?
It really has aged down. It's really an interesting phenomenon. And like the big thing with baseball is they actually renegotiated their contracts because of how dramatically the sport has changed, because like not only are you seeing that like the higher talented players that are really outperforming some of the older players, like a player's value decreases in their 30s, and now I know all about that because like gosh, it takes nothing to hurt anything in your 30s.
No. Well, and after 35 it's just downhill from
so
there.
At this point the average age for a professional baseball player right now 26.
But what was it in the 90s?
Okay.
Probably like 35.
Or 30. I would say like 31 or 30.
In the 90s, it was 29.3 years old.
Oh, 29.
So 30. 30.
So that's a big gap, like for a baseball player. For any athlete, really.
And given my current age,
they could be your babies.
It could be my babies. Okay. Let's not talk about this.
Anyway, back to the episode.
Sports romance.
Back to the show.
Sports romance. What do we like about sports romance? What keeps us coming back specifically to this subgenre? Because if we start looking at it, now Leah doesn't count because we all know the majority of the subgenre that she reads is suspense.
This is true.
But the majority of us, now not currently, we all know
we're all in the dark era.
But why do we keep coming back to these sports romances? What is it about them that we're all like, I like this, or I'm going to check this out because I liked this one. So what do we love about sports romance? Okay. I'll go
I thought
first.
Lindsay was going to talk first.
I'm just, well,
She's
I mean,
pondering. She's pondering the
what
question.
I like about it is like the same thing I like about most other romances is that it's like so unrealistic to my daily life that it just puts you in like a unique and fun situation to read about. I really love baseball. I don't love baseball romance, but I do love hockey romance. I used to love hockey as a sport, but I stopped watching it. I stopped watching it a while ago, just not following it the way I used to. And I still really love like the hockey romances. And I think like for me, a lot of times it's just like really fun and unique stories, and it humanizes people in a way where like you can be more compassionate with real people because you don't necessarily know their situations. Like when I read a romance and sometimes there's a new concept in it, I'll be like, you know what? Like maybe this guy's not being a 23-year-old punk going out and doing stupid stuff. Maybe there's more to it.
So this is why I think that sports romance heroes are the acceptable billionaires right now. Because, you know, we had the one percenters, you know, the Stop Wall Street movements. But then we had all these billionaire romances, and there was a mystique to being a billionaire, right? Like we as average citizens do not know what the day in the life of a billionaire CEO is, right?
Right.
And I think there's a mystique to professional athletes. These are humans that are at the height of their chosen vocation. They are physically at their tops. They've worked hard. They've done all these things. And as an average person who doesn't work out or who doesn't play a sport, there's a mystique to athletes that adds another layer into our romances.
Well, and one thing I like too about them is they normalize like those athletes. Yes, it's romance. Yes, it's fiction, but there are always realistic elements to these stories. And it's like it takes you out of that like pedestal aspect in some ways. And it's like it brings them back down to your level. Like they are like a person, they have lives, they have issues, they have traumas. Like it brings that pedestal down to the floor.
Lindsay, what doesn't work for you in sports romance?
Oh, I wrote a few things about this down.
Please enlighten us.
Most, like if you look at a lot of professional athletes, like most professional athletes who get married really young or early on in their career, they're marrying their high school sweethearts. We don't see that in romance hardly ever.
That's true.
Like I can't think of a single one. And I've read a lot.
Where they marry their high school sweethearts. Kane by Sawyer Bennett.
But they got married late. Like there's
they didn't get married right away. Like they did their own.
That's fine. As long like you just don't see it as I don't think it's like as represented as it is.
I know,
like,
but I'm gonna give
sports.
I'm gonna see if I can find some book recs. So go on.
So that's just one. And then another thing is there's repeated meet cutes. Like they have a lot of situations like, okay, one of the most common ones is PR nightmare and PR rep fall in love and they make it work together. There's a lot of like and like I think it's realistic for their situation, but there's a lot of repeat situations. Whereas like I just read Only One Chance by Marilyn Kelly and they're meet cute. Like she's a sports radio talk host and he is an actual player on the team trying to get with her for years.
Oh no, that's Natasha's book.
That Natasha Madison. That's right. That's Natasha Madison's Only One Chance. That one is really good. Like that's a really unique meet cute. And then another meet cute that I really like a lot is A Lie for a Lie by Helena Hunting when he's on vacation and they are at the cabin in Alaska. That's really like,
but it's Alaska, so it has a special place for you.
Okay, so Making His Play by Mary Carr are Childhood Sweethearts. The Trailblazer, but there's time, so both of those are second chance. Trailblazer by Gina Azzi is
Oh, I like that one
also
a lot.
a
I haven't
Childhood
read that one.
Sweethearts. Hate Me Under the Mistletoe, which is part of the Romancing the Rink series by Kelly Jamieson, is Childhood Sweethearts. But again,
That one
space.
was a really sweetheart. It was more a childhood crush.
Okay, Childhood Crush.
I'm just saying.
Second Dive by Jasmine Miller. It's a second chance childhood sweethearts.
He's a swimmer.
Okay, I haven't read any of these.
Okay.
We'll give you the list.
Okay, so I have those. Okay, I'm sorry. What are your other favorite meet cutes? I'm sorry.
Well, I was done with my meet cute. I talked about two that I liked a lot, and then I just have a lot of complaints. Also,
Tell us your
these
complaints.
people, like a lot of times you see like in the news, like what are the first thing that you do once you sign your $400 million contract? And they're like, beef up my security team because now everybody knows how much money I make. And it's scary and people are crazy. And like in romance, there are security concerns, but it's like really lax in a lot of them. Like you see, and I'm not doubting that it doesn't happen in real life, but I just think like
They're the bigger
there's not
name
always
people.
a security. Yeah,
presence.
the bigger name people. It's like not always in romance shown like the legit security.
Because if
concerns
you
they
think
have.
of Kelly Jamison's New York Bears series, they ride the subway. The one guy meets the busker as they're getting on and off the subway. And wouldn't New Yorkers notice hockey players in fancy suits as they're riding
I don't
the subway?
think they care. Like they don't care because it's like New York. There's celebrities all over the place.
Now, we do.
I'm pretty sure they do care.
Sometimes we do get security like around the arenas because the guys will drive in. And I've read a couple so that I can't think of the name they go by now. Eden Dunn. I think they've changed. They used to be Pippa Green. They've changed their name to Eden Dunn. Those books talk about the guys all live in like a gated community, and you have to be on the list to go in and out.
But
and Samantha Whiskey does too. Her Carolina Reaper series as well.
But I feel like a living situation is different than like an out and about situation because where I live, like there's a penguins training center, like really like it's actually like maybe 15 minutes from my house, and like you'll occasionally see like penguins like out in the wild, but they never have security. Like Troy Polamalu, like we've seen him like in the store. He doesn't ever have security. It's just him.
But would you know?
Yes.
I mean, that
He's
hair.
Troy
Polamalu in that hair.
If he has security or not. Like a lot of times.
Yeah. Because he people he walked into a place where my sister-in-law was the one day and it was just him. Like there was nobody around. Like
I wonder if it depends on the level of sportsness, but also like where you are. Do you know what I mean?
That's true.
Where you're going.
So like
what you're doing.
The town that I live in, Ben Roethlisberger, it played high school sports here and was from this area. And when he would come back for stuff, and it was an event, like a fundraising event he was doing here for boosters or something like that, he would have some security guys with him because he very much liked his privacy and he was here with his kids and his wife. But
that though, like there's a larger amount of people in that scenario though too.
But he recently came back because a kid here got drafted to Ohio State that's out of our high school. And so he came back to just kind of talk to him, mentor him a little bit, tell him what to expect as going in as a quarterback. And there was no security here. And it was just him for the weekend, and it was real low key. So again, I just think it depends on event and where you are.
And how high profile and like how in the
that's
media.
The thing, like are they like sneaking under the radar? Because like I said, like with the penguins, like people will see them like in Target, which is next to the practice facility. So but it's like they're going like from one to the next. It's like if you don't know who they are, because honestly, like I couldn't tell you a penguin from like Joe Schmo down the street. I'd love the penguins, but I don't follow them unless it's like a big name, because that's just how I roll anymore. But I do feel like it's a situational thing with that kind of thing.
Okay, so outside of security, what else don't you like, Lindsay? Or what else bugs you?
I think like it makes them all like there so many of them are playboys, and I'm not disputing that that might not be the case, but like with the level of training that these guys have to do,
I don't think it's as rampant
I
for
don't
as many as
I
you
don't
think.
think it makes sense for every sport. Like I think it would be really, really hard for you to be like a playboy in baseball. Like you play baseball every day. Like if you look, I recently like looked into the, like what their schedule is on game day. They arrive 3+ hours before the game. A lot of times they do, you know, batting practice, they do the game, they do like workouts, food, and then they're there for like hours after the game too. So it's like a good 12-hour day when they're doing these games, and then you factor in commute times, and it's like, are these people really going out and partying after the games? Like, are they really like, what
I
is their
think
social life?
I feel
Because
like
like
at the end of a
in
series they
hockey
would go.
in hockey they play every other day. In basketball they play every other day. In football they play once a week. Like they do have rigorous training schedules and things like that. But in baseball, a lot of times, like after your game, they're going and getting on a plane and flying to another city. Like every 3 or 4 days they're flying somewhere else. So I think like, I don't know. Like I just think like that being like the stereotypical trope, like where every single baseball player or almost every single
It's almost
sport
cliche.
player, it's cliche and it does not make sense. Like I just don't see how. Maybe they're getting it on 24/7 in the off season. But like
Hmm.
in the main season, like have you worked out for 4 hours and then like sat in meetings for 4 hours? And then like, what do you feel like after that? Like, I don't want to do anything. I want to nap.
So I think if we're going to be really honest, our pro athletes that are likely the biggest playboys, I would say are going to be our winter sports guys. They're probably stoned, and you totally can drink and go snowboard.
And then think about all the rumors you hear from the Olympics.
Right.
Oh, well, just like
Condoms and
yeah, there's a
and
lot happening.
STDs like
They
spreading like
run rampant.
wildfire.
Yeah.
So, um, what, Leah, is there
That's the
anything
end of my
you
list.
don't like?
I don't like, if you're going to write a sports romance, you need to have the facts correct. Like you can take some liberties because like area to area there are different like terms and things like that. I get that. But the facts themselves, like the dates that the seasons are played, the
So that's a
type
big thing for me is timeline.
the timeline of the season
Timelines.
has to be right, which you can fudge like a little bit here
No,
and there.
because depending
No, I'm
on what
saying like
depending on what author you read, sometimes a hockey season, their preseason workouts start as early as August. Some of them, their preseason
I'm saying
is
like
like middle of October, and it's like, come on, you
I'm
guys.
saying like if it's the beginning of September, like for like football, like you could have them start like the middle of July instead of August if you wanted. I'm saying like you can fudge it a little bit, but you cannot take liberties with the season itself.
Well, in a
And you have
hockey has a puck, hockey has sticks, hockey has a bench, hockey has a penalty box. It is
and a
not
goal.
and a goal. It is not a player's box. Although I do believe that in hockey they call it the net also.
They do call it the net,
But
and
the
they do call
bench
like a
is
puck
not
is a
a
biscuit
net or is
sometimes.
not a player's
There's
box.
appropriate slang terms when sports are there, but you have to get the facts right. Like it's a pitcher's mound in baseball. I read a book once. I don't even know what the fuck they called it, but it was not the pitcher's mound, and I got real mad.
What else
I
would you
don't know
call
what
it?
they called it.
If you're going to include like really important details, like how contracts work, make sure you know how that works in the sports. Because there are baseball writers out there who I won't read them anymore because that really irritates me. Like I know baseball so well that this will really, like those details I won't overlook. And I'm sorry, but if you are fresh getting called up into the majors, if you're fresh drafted, you're not getting a $200 million contract. That's not how baseball works.
No.
Like,
I also think a piece. No, so this is a piece. So Lindsay is an avid baseball person. Lindsay knows sports. She knows numbers. This statistics and the statisticalness of sports is Lindsay's like catnip. And I know for like Heather that watches it, that listens and helps with us with episodes. She knows everything. She knows the ins and outs of hockey. We talked about piercings and if that was probable in hockey mid-season. All that being said, I know that there are a lot of people that get upset when authors will do interconference play for like the cup. Like, I personally do not know this stuff because I am totally the girl on the sidelines going, yay, sports. Like, I have no clue, you guys. I mean, I don't.
But when you, Becky, can tell when there's a term that is wrong, like that's a red flag in your sports romance.
It is, but I still think, like, I don't. And I also think that people that get so kind of crazy about, like, that team would never play that team for the cup because it would be interconference play or whatever like that. But maybe in this author's world, they are in other conferences.
Those types of things don't bug me because like authors, like a lot of times they don't use real teams. Like they'll use like real teams they play, but they're not like the team themselves isn't real. So like the way that the conferences line up doesn't bug me. It's the fact that like the facts of the sport and the terms of the sport need to be correct. Like you can take liberties to an extent, but you have to have the sport right. Like you are a writer. You need to research your product before you put it out there.
But if you aren't going to take the time to research it, be vague. Like don't put the specifics in there. That's the part that irritates me about it. Like because it is not that difficult to just take those details out and be vague. There are people who write sports,
but the sport isn't
don't
really
include
prevalent.
Those details as much because you're right. Like they want to be part of the genre. They want to be in the genre, but in the situations where they don't want to deal with all the facts and the nuances of the sport and all the gritty details, they move slightly further out from like either they're meeting up in the off season. The story takes place outside of the actual.
Like Sarah Nay, she has a baseball romance in her Jock Hard series. It's Jock Row. It's the book one. The entire book basically takes place on like Party Row, like Sports Row, or like whatever the houses are. And like that's where most of the book takes place. Like the hero is a sports like phenom in college, but the story takes place at the house, the baseball house. So it's like you have the sports aspect of it, but it's not sports focused.
Right.
So it's like you can have the sports romance without the sport.
Yeah, and I think like specifically for those instances, I think college sports actually works a lot better than major league.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why that? Why do you say that?
Because the seasons are shorter, they happen in a smaller environment, and you can get away with like not actually having to go to all the games and like highlight what's going on there. Like there's
okay.
I think there's like more possibility. Yeah. And then the other thing is too, a lot less people know how college sports work.
Yeah.
It's true. Like you're doing college hockey, like that's a very regional thing. So like a lot of hockey fans will know to some degree, but like college sports have different rules a lot of times than like major league sports. And then they also work in different ways too. So
okay. I feel that. Yeah. I get it.
Well, and I feel like when you get like,
I never thought about it.
Aspects of like the college sports world, it works better.
I do think that it works better when they're a younger player. Because if dude is supposed to be 28 years old, he's been in the league 3-4 years at this point. Like say a football romance. They have to play at least 2 years college before they can go into, right? It's 2 or 3 years into the NFL. And so I think the earliest they can be drafted.
Rare occasion. I think you can be drafted out of high school, but it is
you can't. No, you have to have so many years. Yeah, you have to have so many years post.
You must be the only one then.
Basketball did it for a while and then they dropped it. LeBron James was the last one to be drafted out of high school. And then he went after that next year at all, like 2004, they had to have at least 1 year of college. And the risk becomes, with injury and wear and tear on muscles and joints, you're taking potential playing years away from these athletes. And they risk injury by playing for no pay in college. Like it's this whole thing. But like all of that, I think that you can have a playboy in even a pro sport, but but in football at least I think you can. But if dude is 27, 28 years old, he maybe playing football, he maybe has 3 more years of play before his body's going to say, no, thank you. Dude is not going out to the clubs 2 nights a week and grinding up on ladies.
Well, unless
they're tired.
Unless he's a tool, because there are football players that do that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's like no way in baseball. Like even in the all-star break in baseball, I call it break. It's not really a break. Like it's a full week of activities and it's 4 days. It's
like, so, I mean,
they treat it like a week,
doing who you want if you're not on the all-star team
for 4 days.
I mean, you could sleep with a lot of people in 4 days.
So this is a conversation that we've had a couple of times. Can you have a small town feel in a pro sports romance? I believe you can do this with college. I think because college campuses are essentially, even the big Division I schools are like a small town contained into one, especially if it's not like, I don't think that works for the Ohio State University because they are so big and they're right in the heart.
City in itself.
And they're right in the heart of Columbus. But if you take, say, the University of Michigan, which is in Ann Arbor, and in 2A, the only thing that is pretty much there is the University of Michigan. It's a small town. It has small town vibes. So I think you can put athletes in sports there with small town vibes. But I don't think so. I think you can do it in college. I don't think it is well executed. I just don't think you can do it.
I think
in pro.
I think you can have elements of the small town vibe based on, like with Samantha Whiskey's Seattle Sharks series. Like a lot of the players live in the same community, so they have like these big gatherings with all of the players, and you get those small town vibes in like the plan of houses, but like they're in Seattle. So like, but she doesn't try and make it a small town. It's just like this gathering of people, like, and they have like, they can like go between house and house. And like, they have this like really close element because of the way they live, but there's not a small town feel to it. It just has those small town elements.
What do you think, Lindsey?
MMA, yeah, I do. I agree with you. I actually wrote the same notes about the college university piece. Because of like how isolated that environment is, and it gives a very small town feel. And then the MMA series, there's Jiffy Kate's Erickson Brothers, and that's in a small town. And then Piper Rain, My Vegas Groom, that's another situation where like he is a MMA athlete and then he relocates to Alaska to be with her.
But I feel like in those, like they're like taking themselves out of like their training. It's an MMA gym in a small town. So it's like you're taking them out of that like professional element. Right. So it's like a small town with MMA like plopped in.
Yeah, but
that's in a bad way.
That's the other thing with MMA though. I think it works because in MMA, like you're training up for these fights and then you're traveling to the fight. You don't have to live where the event is, because the events are scattered far between. Whereas like most team-oriented sports, you do have to live where the sport is for the duration of the season. And I think like that dynamic in and of itself really heavily impacts like how, like each sports dynamic heavily impacts like how the heroes should actually be portrayed. And then like, what are they doing? Like how are they spending their time? Because it's not all going to be the same. And with MMA, like you have all this downtime in between the events. And I think swimming is a similar one. We don't see a whole lot of like swimming and winter sports as well.
Boxing, I think we see it like Krista Sandor in her Nanny and the Beefcake book. He's training for a big fight. But when we first meet him, he's not training for a fight. He's just working out at the gym and keeping...
Like he's training, but he's not training hard.
But he's in a small town outside of Denver. So I think like you... And yes, I think you can do small town with winter sports too, because Erica Kelly, her Calamity Falls... it starts out with winter sports, snowboarder. They have a training center up in the mountains of Calamity,
Well,
Montana.
and
Violet
Serena Bowen's Gravity series, they are snowboarders and skiers, and I think book one takes place in a small town because he's like stopped snowboarding for reasons or something. But like those are sports that you typically have to travel to your location. So like you can train anywhere. I mean, you need a mountain and snow naturally,
But
but
not
like,
always, because there's indoor training facilities for.
well, but if you're like, if you want to train outside though, like you have to be in specific places, but there are small towns that have those types of facilities there. So it's like
Yeah.
the type of sport itself
But
can lead to that.
like Violet Vaughn's series, she's got that ski romance series based in Colorado where they live in year round in the ski town. And it like a lot of times, like because they're so seasonal, they are smaller towns because the economy hinges around like the resorts being open.
Yeah.
Well, and Jamie Beck, she has a skiing series and they're ski instructors. So like, but it's a small like ski town where like it's a tourist town. So like the town itself is small and like the locals are a smaller number.
Do we have any other, since we're in snow sports, do you have any other book recs for snow sports? I also have Leave Me Breathless by Carrie Elks. He is a snowboarder he's retiring and starting his own resort. And then Magdalen Mountain by Serena Bowen, Rebecca, and I've only read Serena Bowen's and Rebecca Yarros. They're two out of the three that are in that series. Serena, he's a former speed skier who has retired, and in book two, he's a former professional snowboarder who is on hiatus for injury. Any other winter sports, Rex?
J.S. Scott and her Sinclair Billionaire series. It's The Billionaire's Voice. The heroine was actually a figure skater, and she got sick and lost her hearing.
Okay.
It's actually really good.
But I did have a note under my winter sports, which is there's a lot of these winter sports, but where are the surfer romances?
I have a surfer romance for you.
There are a couple.
So
Elizabeth
O'Rourke has 2 or 3 different surfer romances. I read Summer We Fell, but I believe The Devil in Blue, he is competing at the big world surfing competition.
And Max Monroe have the Jerk duet. I really like this duet because it's set up in podcast form. So like book one is the heroine's like podcast and book two is the hero's podcast, but he is a surfer. But it's the day, I don't remember what the actual titles are. It's just the Jerk duet, but I really like the setup of the story itself.
And Jasmine Miller does water sports. Do you know what water sport we don't see?
I have read Jasmine Miller and her swim series, and I think Megan Quinn's stroke series are the two series that I really liked a lot.
Megan Verone also does college swimming.
It's like her Edge of Glory.
Edge of Glory.
I think there's 7 books in that series.
But do you know what water sport we don't see?
Water skiing.
No, I didn't even think about that. Okay, it's the basically it's the yachting speed boat, like where they sail, the sailing cup.
Sailing.
Yeah.
What's the?
Oh, and like Penny Reed's Elements of Chemistry. You see rowing. They're a rowing team.
Rowing. What did I just? Oh, that Troublemaker by Jessica Peterson. He was a rower in college, and he and his best friend still row on the lake on the weekends, but they're not professional athletes. But it adds just another layer. Okay, so I want to talk about it so we can get it out of the way. Hockey, it's currently very, very trendy. Authors that have never written hockey romances are all of a sudden writing hockey romances.
I didn't write any hockey romances down.
Well, that's okay. I don't care if you give any recs. Because we give tons of hockey recs. Like, seriously, listen to any episode, there's hockey recs. Go to the website, there's tons of hockey recs.
It's true.
But tell me this, you guys. All these authors that are all of a sudden popping up hockey romance, even though hockey romance isn't really what they typically right. Do you like it? Do you
No.
hate it? Or are you just curious to see how bad it is?
You know what? I don't read them. I will just be frank. I don't read them unless somebody else in our book club has read them and has highly, highly recommended them, because I'm going to stick to the authors that I already know who've been doing it before it really like got out of control like this. And I want to highlight, like, for me, one of the authors that I really love a lot in hockey romance is Danica Flynn, because she is actually tying like some of the current there's like some conversation in current events, but then like she has a lot of like bi heroines and heroes in her hockey romances, and I love that. Like, I love to show a different perspective that you don't usually see in these sports romances.
And also Danica is a hockey fanatic, so facts
she
are
gets
correct.
hockey right. She gets hockey right. I will say there are some authors that write hockey that seem to be writing lots of hockey that we do not talk about a lot. So author Kate Willoughby has a hockey series that I really like. It's the San Diego Sharks series. We often do not talk about the Brooklyn Bruisers by Serena Bowen.
Oh, I love that series. It's so good.
I recently read a Julia Connors series, or I read book 1, On the Line, or it's the book 4 of and spinning off into a new series. It was very good. She has 3 hockey books previous to that I haven't read yet. Brenda Rother and Kat Mazzara write together their St. Louis Mavericks series. Heather's talked about it a couple times. It's delightful. It's emotional. It is found family. I can't recommend that enough. And then we do have some one-offs. Vanessa Vale wrote Man Candy. He was a pro hockey player. Wild and Wicked by Mary Carr. He was a pro hockey player.
That one was really good.
I really like Kate Meter, and we don't talk about her a lot. Lindsay and I last year read her. So what was that? Jock in Trouble?
I can't remember what it was called, but it's
no, it was that fake dating one, wasn't it?
Right, but
he was the GM, but it was like fake dating with a twist.
I have it right here. Just
that one was really good.
It was really good.
It is
because she doesn't end up with the fake dating dude.
No, she ends up with the GM.
That's not a spoiler, people. Like, you can tell it from the blurb, so don't get mad at us. Don't come at us. Like,
we did a
Jock Wanted by Kate Meter. But yeah, she's really good. And that's a good example of like, Samantha Lind.
Yeah. Yep, Samantha Lind. Her books are great. They are no angst. Rarely is there a third act breakup.
They're also in cities that don't get a lot of attention. Like, they're in Indianapolis, and I love like.
Stephanie K has a Baltimore hockey series that's really well done. I really enjoy that.
I do have some authors on my TBR that I've not read that I know write hockey and lots of people like, and I haven't started them yet. And that's Tegan Hunter.
I have read her. I've not read her hockey series.
No, I read her cheesy series, the Pizza Parlor Small Town.
I like the pizza. Yes.
Those titles are pretty freaking punny, though. Like,
she likes a good pun.
I love puns. They're not for everyone.
The book 1 is called Pizza My Heart.
Anyway.
How can you not love that?
I know. I've actually read a lot of Tegan's books, but I have not read her hockey series yet.
Ali Siz, I know she writes new adult college. And I believe Carrie really likes her books. And then, like I said, Julia Connors, I only read one of her books. I'm intrigued by her writing style, and I will be going back and checking out her books. But like we said, I'm not focusing anymore on hockey because I'm a little angry about all these authors that are all of a sudden, I'm going to write a hockey romance. Really, bitch? You write football. Shut the frickin' door and take your seat. I ain't got time for you.
Honestly, if it's an author that I really love, like, I'll read it. But if it's someone who I'm like, then unless somebody raves about it.
Okay.
No, thank you.
So Lindsay hates baseball romances, but I would like to very clearly say that I have had the pleasure of convincing Lindsay to read some baseball romances.
Oh, you made her read the Kaylee Ryan ones.
And it's actually good. And all of my complaints, like, you can't complain about her books because, like, she clearly knows the sport. She clearly accounted for the way the sport is in it. in the series, and I just really liked the way she handled it. Like, it just felt like it was really realistic the way she handled the challenges of that schedule in building good, solid relationships.
Yeah, I agree.
But that is somebody who did her research or knows a lot about the sport.
That girl must live and breathe baseball, because it is really like a lot of times it's just underwhelming, and like the way that a lot of authors handle baseball, it's just like it's like they get tired of writing about the sport. You can't get tired of writing about baseball if you're going to write a baseball romance, because again, they play 162 games a year. That's 6 straight months of baseball. They have, a month and a half of spring training before that. Then they have a month-long postseason. Like, that's a lot of baseball. Where in there do you have time every day to go on dates with girls? You don't.
So Jiffy Kate writes a baseball series that takes place in New Orleans. And
yes,
I actually do enjoy that series. Melanie Scott has her New York Saints series. They are older, but I recently reread the first one, The Devil in Denim. It's very, very well done.
I will say,
okay, but Jiffy Kate, they're baseball fanatics.
They
went to the All-Star game. My dream Jiffy Kate signing is to meet them at a baseball game and get them to sign all my books.
Jiff goes to opening day for the Astros like every year with her dad. Like, that is one of their things.
Oh, I saved one of their books last year to read it at the ALCS game because Charlie and I flew to New York for it. So I was at Yankee Stadium when I started to read their book. Because the Astros were playing, and I was like, Charlie thinks I
Jiff would have been so happy.
Yankees. They were. I tagged them on the internet.
Sloan Howell has a baseball series.
I will say, though, I feel like with baseball, you don't every once in a while you'll have like series, but I feel like baseball is more like a one-off.
Well, I was just going to say that I have a lot of like one book in a series. One of the heroes is a baseball player.
Or it's like a really short series. Like Samantha Christie has this, like her Steel or her Perfect Game series, but it's only 3 books. I mean, granted, she only does 3-book series, but like Melanie Shawn has one called Teasing Destiny, but it's the only baseball book like in the whole series.
Tina Gallagher does the Carolina Waves series for baseball, and I think that one is pretty well done. Her books take place out of the schedule. So like, I think the first one, he's injured and he falls in love with his personal therapist, his physical therapist. And then there's the other ones that take place in spring training where they're like in a set place with less rigorous schedule and like less of that chaos of the normal season to interfere. So by the time they do get back into the rhythm of the sport, it's not like they have a strong foundation to make it really believable. So I think she does a pretty good job with that series too.
Okay, we're moving on to football because we are giving. So what I'm going to suggest all of our listeners is go over and check out our Goodreads. You can find all our Goodreads links on our website. And each of us do have sports romance shelves. And
I have to add
specifically
more,
because
what sports. Leah was a dumbass.
Well, I know this. But let's move on to the next sport because people are going to be like, poor Amanda, as she's writing our wiki, is going to be like,
oh my goodness,
shut up.
We are not sorry, Amanda. She's going to have to like keep pausing and starting and rewinding the 10 seconds.
Okay, let's go to football. And
okay,
so here's a question about football because I think it's similar to baseball. We don't get hockey, we get a whole team. Football, we don't really get whole teams. It's 3 books or it's one-offs. It's like not every player gets a romance. Like
there are definitely less football series than anything else.
You see lots of football in new adult.
Palomalu, like I think it would be so cool to have like a Troy Polamalu inspired romance where you're actually talking about a safety instead of just like the quarterback and his 2 best friends.
The kicker.
On the team.
Don't you think the kicker needs or the corner?
The center.
The cornerback.
Well, the kickers are so interesting too because a lot of times they're like soccer players turned football players, and that would be like a really cool way to like kind of.
Well, that's where college a lot of times they'll recruit.
I will
like soccer
say
players for kickers.
Kristen Callahan, her Game On series, we get defensive backs, we get the center, we do get a quarterback, and we get a wide receiver.
You don't have a football team if somebody's not hiking the ball, people.
And so Kristen Callahan, if you've not read that Game On series, it's an older series. It's been out for a while, but it's so well done. Like so well done. The Game by Vi Keeland, also the best grand gesture I have read this year. And Lindsay's dying because Leah's inappropriate.
All the time. All the time.
So the Game by Vi Keeland. Lisa,
that was a really good book.
It was a really good book. Lindsay, pull it together, sister.
I'm sorry.
Lisa Suzanne has her Vegas Aces book. And I think the stories, I read the first 5 books for the same couple. And that's what bugs me, is that she writes these
elaborate.
Each couple gets 5 books and they're longer than novella, but they're not like, 75,000 words. It's weird. And she does a lot of stuff just, I think, for extra pages.
Anyway, so Ilsa Madden Mills actually writes a decent amount of football. She does new adult football because she has I can't think of the college name, but she has a whole college like new adult series that actually is really good. And I'm not a big fan of new adult typically, but then she has The Princess and the Player and the
Beauty and the Baller.
The Beauty and the Baller. Thank you. But those are NFL like players, and those are really well done.
Stacey Lynn just started a new football series.
Yeah, she went back to football because she had wrote football before she wrote hockey, and so she's attorney.
So there is that. Also, Sarah Nay, her Trophy Boyfriend series has a baseball player, football players, and maybe
Sarah writes a bunch of different.
And she does football in college also that I think is well done.
So Katie Ashley has one called Hard Way. It's actually really good. There's a second one too that's his brother, but it's a different sport, but I can't think of what it is off the top of my head.
Lindsay, do you have any football?
I really like the Samantha Whiskey Raleigh Raptors series and how it ties into her Carolina Reapers series. I love Carla Sorensen's football books. I actually had the Kristen Callahan books written down. What else? Oh, and then I actually had a sidebar of Carla Sorensen's I forget what that series is called. The Ward Sisters. It's a cross sport series where every single sister winds up with a boyfriend of a different sport. And I thought that was really cool how that played out.
Yeah, because there's football, soccer, snowboarding, and
MMA.
You're right. I couldn't think of that.
Oh yeah, that's the book that doesn't pop till 90%.
And we don't have his siblings.
That's true. Maybe the next series.
I hope, because that's such an opportunity.
It really is. Moonshine Kiss by Claire Kingsley and Lucy Score in the Bootleg Spring series. George he's retired football player. It's delightful and very good. And then
doesn't he wind up with a I guess, do we call her a neurodiverse hero?
Yes. Neurospicy. Yes.
She is very
I really love that book. That book,
that's my favorite in that series.
That is a great book. It's
a really good book.
Yeah.
It's my favorite in that series.
And then Maria Lewis has Kiss Me Tonight. It's part of her Put a Ring on It. So Dom is a retired NFL player, and he.
Okay, I'm cutting you off. You're done.
Wait,
done with
I have
football.
To finish this. No, she's a female coach.
That's great. We're moving.
She was a kicker in college.
Okay, soccer room. We are gonna run out of time, and we're gonna have to do a part 2.
Nobody cares if we do a
soccer
part 2.
Romance, aka American football continued.
I will say I had a harder time with this one.
I did too. I know that author Ava Harrison has a soccer series. But I did come up with Temptation by Jenna Hartley. And then she has one of her LA series that he's the pro soccer player. In Temptation, he owns the soccer team. And Until May by Aurora Rose Reynolds, he is a soccer player and they meet on vacation.
Yes, that's delightful. McKinley May has a college soccer series. It's called the Treehouse Boys because like the soccer house is like set up like a treehouse. Like that's where they live. And it's actually really well done. She has only released like 3 books, I think. So it's I don't know if she's writing more, like if she's just an extremely slow writer, but it's been a while since I read them, but I did enjoy them. And then Maya Hughes has one called Passion on the Pitch. It's one of her older books, but it was pretty good. Um, Scoring Wilder by R.S. Gray. It was one of her first books that she wrote. So it's lower angst. He's a coach, she's the player. So there's a little bit of taboo there, but it's not like so bad. Like, because he is younger.
Lindsay, do you have any soccer sports? We're gonna have to go back to start limiting us to like 3 books per sport.
Hey, Bromberg has a soccer romance that I read a few years ago. I think he sent me the paperback for that one. And then Amy Dawes, her Harris Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
I like that one, but I will say like one of the books in there is a duet, and I did not appreciate that.
See, I like that duet.
Okay, I like the duet. I didn't being surprised when you're reading a series and every other book.
Oh, you didn't know it was a duet?
No, Leah,
that's the
I didn't.
Worst. That's the worst. See, I waited until book 2 came out before I read book 1.
That book, I like stayed up late reading it, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna be all cute, and I'm gonna read until 2 a.m. and then I'm gonna get up at 6 a.m. for work. And then I was like,
you were so mad.
The hell? This is not a happy ending? No, that's a way to make me hate you a little bit. Like
I will say though, I like that off. Like the original series really better than the spinoffs.
I only like her original series. I read one of her spinoffs, and then I kind of hadn't read anything else by her. So
there
I'm just laying it all out there for you today.
Okay, so let's move on to basketball.
Okay, so basketball I had a really hard time with. So Fade to Blue by Andrea Hopkins and Blonde Date, which is a novella by Serena Bowen, were the only 2 basketball books that I found that I have read.
I did read Kennedy Ryan's Hoop series, but check content.
I did not read those ones because,
But I'm a Kennedy Ryan fan, and she writes it. I'm gonna read it.
Max Miller has basketball too. I read his basketball. I read Kennedy Ryan's. Kennedy Ryan's good. I did
was it
not
Max
love
Miller
Max
or is
Miller's.
it Mikey Miller? Mike Miller.
Mickey.
Or Mickey Miller.
Wait, what?
Is it Mickey? Because it's Max Walker, who we usually talk about, or Mickey Miller.
And then Mickey Miller. I didn't know Mickey had a big basketball one.
Yeah, Mickey Miller. He's got a duet. It's very, very angsty.
Oh,
I don't love
that one. Andrew's on the covers.
I was thinking Max Walker.
No, that's okay.
He does not write basketball. He writes really great cruise romance about Christmas. That's one of my favorite books. Read it.
It's such a fun.
That's not even a sports romance.
I also had
actually cruising sports for old people. Yes.
Shuffleboard. Where's our shuffleboard romances? Pickleball.
A little bit of bocce, perhaps.
Pickleball is taking over the nation. Where's our pickleball romances?
They play pickleball in the gym by my office like 3 times a week.
There is a huge pickleball tournament happening here in July, you guys. Like, people are coming in for it. And I'm just like, fucking pickleball? What?
I know so many people that play it now. I don't see the draw, but whatever.
R.S. Gray, King of the Court, is a baseball book, and Piper Lawson, or basketball. And Piper Lawson has some basketball that I've never read.
So here's the thing. We need more basketball books.
Yeah. Golf. I have one, The Right Boss by K.A. Lindy. He is a professional golfer that is retiring and coming home, in his family money, they are going to build a PGA golf course.
I think I have 2. So The Perfect Stroke by Jordan Marie. He is a professional golfer. It's part of her Crayon Gang, like brothers and family. And then I think this one, hold on, give me a second.
Lindsay, do you have any golf?
Oh, I clicked on the wrong book. Sorry.
No, but I would be curious if anybody's read the Tian Mayer Teardrop Shot book. That's on my TBR for basketball from a long time ago. Okay. But I've never read it. Oh
no, this one was not It was a charity event. I lied.
No, I've read 0 golf books.
Yeah.
I will just be honest, like I'm probably not ever going to unless it includes like a cute little putt-putt scene.
Tara Civic has a golf one that I haven't read yet, but I do enjoy her books.
But aren't they Fade to Black?
No.
Okay. That's good to know.
She has a book about otters.
I do have a lumber sports book rec.
Oh, yeah.
Would You Marry Me by Daphne Elliott. He is competing in the National Lumber Sports competition, and it involves like climbing trees and cutting them with axes and rolling logs. And I don't know. It's a thing. Wife carrying relay races. It's a thing.
It is a thing. So tennis, we have 40 Love by Olivia Dade.
Sure.
He is a tennis pro. And then also Royal Player by Katie McCoy. They are at Wimbledon, I think. It was really
tennis
good.
Isn't something else we don't see a lot of.
No, I was like searching through my Kindle and like going through like my Goodreads, and because again, past Leah was a dumbass. And so I'm like searching through like the 6,000 books I have in my Goodreads. And I'm like, it's a lot of books and not a lot of like tennis, or not obscure sports, but like not the more popular sports. And I was kind of annoyed by that.
So Lisa K. Adams has a equestrian book. It's a novella, Wild in Rio, based at the Rio Olympics. And she is a horseback rider competing in the equestrian sports. And then she, there's I forget what he is, but they're both athletes in the Olympics.
Okay. I would love a novella series, like a multi-author novella series that takes place like in an Olympic village. Like with
that
different,
would be phenomenal.
Wouldn't that be a great novella series?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because you can cross everything. You can do winter sports. You can do summer sports.
You could have like a winter series and then like a summer collab series, and you can cover. You could do a curling one.
You could have different athletes of different sports. I would read this.
I want a curling romance, people.
Well, I was just thinking of like she said horseback, right? Like dressage, which is like the really fancy horse,
or even like archery, or like
the triathlon. Like, and we all have heard the stories of, the condoms and the STTs happening in the Olympic Village. And actually
there's endless opportunity.
During COVID,
I will say there are some, because Piper Rain has an Olympics one. It's their ice games series.
So remember this last Summer Olympics, the beds were made out of cardboard, and part of the reason it was to be like sustainability and all this kind of stuff, but it was also like because of COVID restrictions and stuff.
Sex.
So people weren't doing it in the cardboard beds. Okay, so those are our sports recs. Take what you will. I'm sure we'll have more sports romance episodes coming to in the future because we do read a lot of it. If you have a title or an author that writes something that we talked about and you think they should be on our radar, again, please email us, thebees@bookcaseandcoffee.com, or go to our website and fill out a contact form. We need the book recs. We are all trying to read new and different authors. So the more books you send our way, the more authors that we aren't talking about, but you love, the better job we can do of representing what's out there in the world of Romancelandia. Okay, Leah, guess what?
It's that time.
It's that time. Book of the week. It's book of the week time. Lindsey, what's your book of the week?
I'm going to say Irresistibly Yours by Lauren Lane. I reread that for a quick shot that we're doing together. It is sports adjacent. She is like one of my comfort read authors. I've read like her whole backlist, almost her whole backlist.
Those Oxford men.
And I've been rereading. Yeah, that's the series I've been rereading. Her Oxford Men and then the Stiletto Girls, because I really love that one. Anyway,
they're fantastic.
Sports adjacent. They meet at a Yankees game.
She loves hot dogs.
She does. She eats an unhealthy amount of hot dogs. Like her sister calls her in this book just to make sure she's eating something other than hot dogs.
Yeah. Anyway, listen for that quick shot of romance coming out soon. Leah, what's your book of the week?
My book of the week is Possession by Bryn Asher. It is her new series starter of the agents. It's actually a little bit darker than some of her other stuff. It's like a mix between her like Dylan Sisters duet darkness and like her Vine like Killer series. It's forced marriage, like total touch her and die vibes. Like the hero literally says, if you touch her, I will kill you. And I will say that it does come true a little bit.
Okay.
So, but there's a twist.
There's a twist.
So you just have to read it. It's really, really good though.
So my book of the week is Pray Tell by Amanda Richardson.
Oh, you keep talking about this one.
This book is primal play. There is absolute consent, but there is some consensual non-consent, but it is well talked about and discussed, and what his kinks are and what she's willing to handle and do. And I went into this book, it was suggested to me by one of our community members who didn't know where to put it in our Discord as a book record to talk about it. And I looked at the blurb because I wasn't sure. I'd never heard of this author or heard of this book. And they said, and when I read it, I was like picking it up and I'm like, okay, this is going to be porn without plot, like sizzling read, porn without plot. We're not getting a whole lot here.
I'm there for that.
And then it ended up being this really complex story with these really well thought out, layered characters, a story that made sense. I'm desperate for the next book. I mean, there was spice, but there was also this like next level of development and unfolding that I wasn't expecting. And I know that a couple of community members have also read it and they're like, yeah, I get this. I get why this book is sticking with you. So anyway, Pray Tell by Amanda Richardson. Patreon update. Swag packs are headed out this week for July. I'm excited to share our swag pack sponsors for the authors for July are author Susan Stoker and Kaylee Ryan. Also as Rebel Shaw. Kaylee Ryan also sent some Rebel Shaw stuff to go with it. Swag packs go out to Fancy Drink Cold Brew and Queen Bee tier, and we still have fun Buzzing About Romance exclusive stickers in each pack or mood reading cards and other fun things. They are mailed monthly on the 5th of the month, and we do ship these internationally. There is no wait time on this perk. It kicks in as soon as you join. Because of our amazing Patreons, we are able to bring you 3 episodes a week, and we are still working on our goal of 75 members so that we can plan our first ever community-wide book retreat. All members of the Patreon get exclusive episodes along with perks like Drunk or Buzzing Book Club. Back by popular demand is our summer reading challenge. It's a little bit scaled back, but it's still fun and chaotic. And it ends on July 31st. You can find details on our website. And if you would like to know what events we have coming up, you can find them at bookcaseandcoffee.com/events. And this includes happy hours, IG Live, book club, and book discussions. That's all the things. Oh, and for those of you who have not yet bought your tickets for the HEA Readers event in Indianapolis, Indiana, November 3rd through the 5th, you are going to want to do that. We are going to have our first ever Buzzing About Romance meetup. We are signing at that
in-person meetup.
In-person meetup. We are signing at that event, and I believe we are going to do something Friday night before the cocktail hour, and then we will probably play the romance card game that I got from Sky Warren from Dangerous Press Saturday night.
Oh, things are going to get crazy.
So, and I hope to have a signature drink at the bar for all of us. So expect big things from Buzzing About Romance for our community members. But you can get those tickets. You can find a link on our website. Lindsey and Leah, thank you so much for joining me for this episode.
It's always a good time.
It was a great time.
Well, you're welcome for all the wrecks. We're sorry.
We're sorry. Until next time, everyone.
Happy reading, everybody.
Find us on Instagram at Buzzing About Romance or on Twitter at Buzzing Romance. If you like the podcast, please leave a review. If you'd like to support us directly, join the Bookcase and Coffee Patreon and receive exclusive content only available to Patreon members. Check out bookcaseandcoffee.com for our on-the-shelf show notes.